Welcome to The Road Less Traveled with Tiffany Rosenbaum. This podcast is about sharing the success and failure of entrepreneurs. Join in and learn from others' mistakes so you don't have to go through the same hardships in business. Now let's welcome your host, business coach, real estate investor, and proud wife and mom, Tiffany Rosenbaum.
Welcome to another episode of The Road Less Traveled. We are excited today to be with David, the founder and CEO of Rentvine, a very successful SaaS company, and is changing the world of property management, I would say. So let's go ahead and start. David, tell us how you got into want to start Rentvine, and how did that journey begin?
Okay, well, thanks for having me on. I appreciate that. I was forced into it by my parents. So I, all the way back to my childhood, my parents were realtors. And when we moved to Colorado Springs, they started doing not only real estate, but property management. And they were real estate investors that were flipping properties, but we would live in them while we were flipping it, make it nice. And then we'd move out into a new crappy house, and then rent out the nice one that we just fixed up. So we did that about 3 or 4 times, and my mom said enough, made my dad buy a permanent house. But they still continue to do real estate investment. And obviously there's a lot of people that probably follow the same journey where they do it themselves so much, and then people start asking them because they've assembled a good group of vendors and they know who to call and they're out there looking for good deals. And so they inevitably started managing accounts for other people, and they got up to hundreds of properties, late 80s, early 90s, which is, we didn't have anywhere near the software and the organization and the trade groups as we do now. So that's a pretty decent little company back then. And and they did it out of the house. So wow. Got to hear them yell at tenants sometimes, and tenants dropping off wads of cash for rent and all that stuff. So
you had tenants coming to your home then?
Yeah. And I'd never do that myself, but my dad's pretty frugal. Didn't want to invest in any office space for a while. So
I can understand that. And y'all were all paper then. Back in the 80s and 90s, you had to have been all paper.
Yeah, 100%. I think my dad bought a Commodore 64, and that was like the greatest thing ever because I could play video games on it. But he was using it to do statements, and that's where I learned all my cuss words, was him trying to figure out how to print off the Commodore 64. So when I graduated, I went in the military for about 10 years. I went to West Point, flew helicopters for a while, and when I got out, I like the military, but I've always kind of had the entrepreneurial bug, and I've always been interested in property management for some reason. And so I went into business with my mom, and this was around 2000 actually, 2001 maybe. And I started a company called RentClicks when I was doing that. And that was an advertising company. It's rentals.com now. I sold it. So yeah, it's still out there, still doing okay. But I started that because I couldn't find anywhere to advertise in a slowing rental market, and we were using the paper, which was fine if you only had to advertise for a week or so. But if you're heading there for a month or two, that bill gets pretty hefty. The owners start complaining. So I was simply looking for a better place to advertise, and we started that company. Sold that in a few years to what used to be Apartment Guide. I think it's Rent, or I don't even know what their name is anymore. It's changed hands a few times.
So why did you decide to sell that one? Was that the plan the entire time? Build it up, sell it, make a profit, and start something else?
Well, we didn't really have a plan. That was part of the problem. We're young. We're in our early 30s. Some people waved what we thought was a lot of money at us and said, "You want to sell it?" And we said, "Wow, that would be pretty nice to have that kind of money." And we took it, even though it's made many, many times that since we've sold it. But that's okay. That you live and you learn. And I'm going to be, I wouldn't be where I am now had I stuck with it. But in hindsight, it would have been smarter to keep it because it's still making good money today, and it's been almost 20 years since we sold it. So. But it does give you a lot of experience. And then I went and did some other stuff that was not property management related with limited success. And my current business partner, Jonathan Ewan, contacted me while I was doing that. And then we started working together. And our initial venture that we did together was actually a competitor to RentClicks called Free Rental Site, which we ended up using as our marketing wing for like PMW to market people's properties and distribute it out to Zillow and all the rental sites. But we never really got quite the traction that we did at RentClicks. And then, so we kind of pivoted to doing PMW, property manager websites. I founded that company also with Jonathan, and we thought there was a really good opportunity to use our SEO knowledge that we had used to attract tenants to property managers' listings to help them find tenants. We thought there was a good opportunity to help them market themselves to investors. And so we kind of started as the only like vertical specific web development company. And
I actually have a PMW website. I actually have one. I switched. I had done every website in the book, David, every website. And I paid thousands and thousands. And you've got to tell me this. Why does PMW have a better traction on Google than if you go build it with someone else? It just does. So why is that? What's the backing behind this, that the secret sauce? Why should more people do PMW? Because even if you go on anywhere, I've had 3 different developers develop websites. And then I had yours, and it's like yours just does a lot better no matter what I do, does a lot better, and it's really well priced. But why is it so different?
Well, we're going to have to raise our prices after that.
No, don't say that.
No, it's...
I'm kidding.
It's no different than anything else. I mean, I have people tell me, it's funny, early on, they're like, well, my son's going to do my website. Really? So if you're getting heart surgery, you're going to have your son do it? He likes you a lot? Or do you want someone who actually knows what they're doing? Doing something as important as marketing your business. You don't want to turn that over to an amateur that may be able to make a pretty site or a functional site, but doesn't know the discipline behind search engine optimization, which we know. And it's part of our culture here, and people know it, and it's why it works. And if like you said, if you go to pretty much any city in America and type in Phoenix property managers, Denver property managers, Sacramento, whatever, half the organic results or more are going to be our customers, and it's because we know what we're doing. And most of our competitors, and our biggest competitor is still like the local web guy that a property manager goes and hires his friend, his uncle, his aunt, his nephew, his cousin, somebody who's doing an internship in websites to do their website, and they wonder why they never get found. That's, like I said, it's like getting cancer and calling your plumber. It doesn't compute.
It doesn't work.
So you want to hire experts that understand what they're trying to do. So that business specifically, we had the discipline. We know what terms people are searching. We know what the investor is looking for when they search. And then there's also other stuff that, conversion metrics, getting people to contact you. And that's all. It's all a discipline that you learn over so far 25 years of doing it. So unless you can compress that into a week or two or transfer that knowledge to your nephew, you're not going to be able to compete with us from a search engine perspective.
No, I like that you... Go ahead, sorry.
There's only 2 reasons to have a website. Make yourself more efficient so your clients can contact you and, interact, log in and pay rent, check their statements, look at your forms, blah, 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 and then to get new clients. And I would argue that getting new clients is the most important part of those 2, because literally anybody can make you a brochure website that can make you more efficient. But being able to drive traffic and business to you is significantly more valuable than that.
No, it is.
Everybody can't do that.
And our viewers, they have to have a website. Now, the question I have is, how do they know who is the professional? Because out there, you see everybody saying, oh, I've done all these websites. This is what they look like. And they look pretty to a business owner going in. But how do they know that they're going to get the results before they hire them? Like, what are some questions they should ask? Because that's a big question for our viewers, our listeners. What should they ask? How do they know?
Well, funny enough, we get a lot of business because people do a search and they see their competitors in the search, and then they scroll down to the bottom of the website where we have our website by PMW, and they contact us and say, put me ahead of them.
Yeah.
And we can't do that, but we can do our best, and use the same. We use the same discipline for all of our customers, but there are certain things that Google likes to see that are inherent in some companies that are not in others. So we can do the exact same thing for two companies, and one might do better because they have a lot more properties or a lot more links or whatever it is. There's a lot of effort from the customer that's involved to really make it awesome. There's some things that we just can't do. We can't go out and do events and podcasts and stuff like you do to be successful for you, but we can do all of the basic easy blocking and tackling that makes you able to compete. That's the main thing there. So
on PMW websites or anybody's website, what's the number one thing that when someone's going to hire someone to build a website, what's the number one thing they need to hone in on to make sure that you're highly ranked for Google?
Well, the number one thing is, Google has an algorithm that they obviously don't publish.
Yes.
So we have to try to figure out, and there's all kinds of forums and websites where you can, and we pretty much know now. Obviously, Google really likes links. They really like content, and they really like traffic. So, there's domain authority, usage data, and relevancy. Those are the three major categories that go into SEO. You have to have a really strong, powerful domain, that's why it's hard for a brand new customer, brand new website to compete, because Google treats new websites like a new business. We don't trust you yet. We're not sure you're any good. We don't know. We don't have any reviews. We don't know if people like you or not. And then there's relevancy, which means, does this website actually do what the searcher is looking for? In this case, Phoenix property management, Scottsdale property management, whatever. Do you actually do that? So most people are very relevant because they are working and doing property management in the areas that they are, targeting. But then there's also like usage data, and that's really hard to gain, because part of it is just by being big. If you're a company with 1,000 units versus a company with 10 units, then you're going to have 100 times as much traffic. That's just the way it goes, because you have a lot more tenants that are going to interact. You have a lot more owners that are going to interact, vendors, whatever, and you can't really fake the traffic and usage data that you get. But then there's obviously lots of other stuff that goes under each one of those. But relevance and a lot of usage data helps. The way you get that, the very most successful customers out there are the ones that create a lot of great content that people are interested in, whether they want to hire you or not. So if there's a lot of investors out there just trying to figure out how to do something like, where do I get a lease? How do I screen a tenant? This is all the stuff that the guy who owns one house that thinks he can do it on his own is trying to figure out. And then they realize that through doing all these searches, they keep maybe finding the same guy who's given all this great advice. And then they're like, you know what, forget it. I'm just going to hire this guy, girl, whoever. And that's just kind of the way it works. And even if they don't hire you, at least they're on your website creating usage data that Google's tracking and say, wow, when somebody goes to this website, they spend 45 minutes there and they look at 82 pages, and we're going to leave that site ranked highly. So that's just the big puzzle algorithm that we understand better than anybody else, at least as far as property management goes, by a long shot. It's not even close. So that's why our customers and our websites dominate the markets that they're in, because we know what to do, and we know, more importantly, we tell our customers what to do, and those that listen are very successful. So
it's true.
That's why you have a big advantage.
It's interesting to watch, because I did it. I tried to go somewhere else and it did not work. What's the most important thing on a website? Words, videos, or pictures? Or do you need them all? But if you're going to hone in on one item, what's the most important?
Obviously, the better. Like I said, it's that combination of relevancy, usage data, and domain authority. So if you were somehow able to buy Amazon.com from Jeff Bezos and put your website on there, that site has so much domain authority that you would be number one on a lot of things, not just property management. So then when you make yourself more relevant by giving more content. So if you're doing great videos on anything that, and obviously it's whatever your target user is. If your target user is a investor that owns a property or 2 or 3 or 10 that is looking for someone to manage it, then you're going to have to put out content that's interesting or necessary or needed by that particular person or persons. And that's how to rent a property, how to sign a lease, how to screen, how to do maintenance, who should I call, all the stuff that you guys do on a daily basis. That's what they're looking for, and they're trying to do it for free. So once they realize that they're spending so much more time trying to figure out how to do what you guys do, then ultimately they eventually just hire you instead of I mean, yeah. We did there's reasons why people don't hire a property manager. Either they don't know about it, it's too expensive, or they've had a bad experience with a property manager. So you have to overcome those 3 things. And if you're able to do that, then they'll hire you instead of trying to do it themselves. Yeah, and a website is a really good place for them to see all the content and learn about you before they actually see you or talk to you on the phone. In today's world, it's still the number one place. I mean, obviously there's lots of social media, Facebook, Instagram, X, TikTok, whatever. And those are useful, but the hub of all of that is still the website. And that's where people are looking to find you. And that's, if you're seen as the expert, then you have a much better chance of getting hired than your competitors do. And obviously running a better company, you got to do a good job. Yes, 100%. You get number one on Google all day long, and then you're losing all your customers because you're terrible at what you do. Then that doesn't really help either. But no, we could talk about churn all day long. But if like when you started PMW, how long were you with just PMW before you started another arm, or before you started the next adventure? Probably about 10 years. I mean, we really started programming in earnest on Rentvine in 2017. And we did that for a couple of reasons. Number one, we did have a lot of people telling us, hey, can you guys please do software? We don't like any of the options that are out there right now. Whether, we have our competitors are great for some stuff, but they're terrible at other things, whether it's customer service or maybe their software is old or whatever it is. There was a demand for somebody with a lot of industry knowledge to come in and build a software. And we had no illusions about how hard it was. We're like, no, thank you. I mean, it probably was about 5 years of no thanks, no thanks, no thanks before we finally decided that we wanted to take on the challenge. And we did that from some cajoling from our customers, but also because we had built other software that was, kind of outside of the platform, like some screening. Even PMW is outside of the platform. Most of the platforms do offer some kind of website, even though they never compete with ours. And we got tired of building those products and then having them not be well adopted because we didn't have a platform. Once you have a platform, like everybody uses your screening, everybody uses your payments, everyone uses, as long as if your maintenance is good, people are going to use it. If your e-signature product is good, people are going to use it. And if it's not good, then they use something else. And then we knew that we can't be the best at everything, so we have an open API so that if people want their data from our system, they can get it just like that, easy to be used on any other software. So that's one of the things that distinguished us there is, I think we took that approach from the beginning, but it's an extremely complicated project. It's extremely expensive, and that's, taking it on. We thought we knew this was going to be really, really hard, and it's actually 10 times harder than we thought it was going to be. But, that's what most people say. Yeah, but nothing worth doing. Nothing worth doing is easy. So what year did you start Rentvine platform? 2017? So we actually had like a early iteration of it that we were using. We were trying to do kind of like bigger pockets, cozy, investor-facing iteration of it, because we wanted to use it as kind of like a lead gen tool for PMW.
Okay.
But we ended up getting scammed out of about $20,000 in rent money because we weren't really paying as much attention to it as we should have been. And so we kind of shut down the investor-facing experience. And then a couple years later, we started back up as a property management software tool. Okay. And our official launch date, we consider coming out of beta, is like April of 2021.
Okay.
So like 3.5 years ago. But we programmed for 4 years before that, because, you don't just sit down. I mean, I think Rentvine is over 50 million lines of code. So you don't just sit down and knock that out over the weekend and have people start using it. I mean, it's very complicated. The reason we exist is for trust accounting. That's all 50 states have regulations. They have a real estate department that can come in your office at any time, knock on the door and say, hey, somebody accused you of stealing some money. Let me see your books. And we have to be able to not only be rock solid in accounting if nobody would need a specific industry specific software. If QuickBooks was, you guys would all just be using QuickBooks.
Oh no, I started on QuickBooks. It gives me anxiety to even think about that, because it's just so different. It's so much harder. When you have a platform for property management, it is a lot easier. If anybody's in property management, don't use QuickBooks. It does not work as well.
I actually, when I was with my mom, her business, I actually did use QuickBooks, and I divided all the properties into classes.
Oh, yes.
And, oh, man, I made so many mistakes and errors and paid, it's so hard to keep track of. You're paying out of the wrong account sometimes. Yeah, it was a mess. So anyway, so you have to fix that regulatory requirement. You have to be awesome at accounting. That's number one. And then obviously everyone wants other stuff. They want their business to be as efficient as possible. So you want to be able to have screening that's integrated, and e-signature and maintenance and reporting and anything that in showings and CRM and inspections. You want to have all that stuff, but it's really hard to be the best at all of that stuff. And typically people want to use the best products, whether it's if we can build all of those that are the best, great. But if not, then you can use somebody else, and we empower our customers to make that very easy through the API.
You do. And what I love that you said is, and ambiguously, but 4 years. You spent 4 years coding, working
Correct.
on this
Not
to get
me.
this. Well, no, your team behind you.
Yeah.
4 years before anybody really saw what was going to happen. And I think what people need to understand is, like you said, a lot of people, you're not going to code this over the weekend, but a lot of people are like, hey, let me just get it up over the weekend. The problem is the planning and the real work behind the scenes is what makes it successful on the forefront afterwards, right? Is that what you would say?
Yeah, and we had millions of dollars into the product before anyone could even use it, because it just wasn't ready yet. And we were in beta for about 6 months with a handful of customers to make sure that, and as you know, just imagine whatever product you're using today, take away like 60% of it or 80% of it, and imagine trying to do your job. And that's basically where we are. Where we were is, okay, hey Dave, we can't use it because of this. Okay, we got to build that next. And then, so with those beta customers, we had to get them to an area where they could actually run at least 60-70% of their business on our product before we could really start going out and competing and selling and saying, hey, this is ready for you. And, I have a hard time. I don't want people to switch and struggle and hate it. So I have a hard time selling stuff that I'm not confident in. And so you have to get the product to a point where you're really confident in that people are going to be able to do it. And obviously, I did the first 150 demos, and it's pretty hard to sell a property management software when you don't have integrated screening, you don't have a maintenance product, you don't have any signature, which is, so anytime my salespeople complain about not being able to, I'm like, try selling it without a maintenance product. See how that goes.
Exactly.
So, and then Go ahead.
No, I was going to go back a little bit. You said it was 10 times harder than what y'all projected. And I think that's normally with entrepreneurs. We think it's going to be easier than it is. Can you tell us a little bit about what was harder than what you thought it was going to be?
Mainly it's the product. I think we do a pretty good job here running a business, support, onboarding, sales, marketing. The blocking and tackling, accounting, finance of a business is pretty similar across any type of business. But when you have a software, the product is your business. And we knew it was going to be hard. We've built plenty of software products before, and they're much more limited in what they do. In PMW, we built a content management system, which is where we host all of our websites, and we're able to build that. But that's internally facing to our employees. So our employees aren't going to come over and threaten to fire us if it's not perfect. Customers will. If there's something lacking in your product, the customers are going to say, sorry, I got to go use something else. This isn't working for me. So what happened was I have two really great engineers, and including my business partner. And once we started building, we're like, hey, we need some front end developers. We need some better back end developers. We need some database people. We need someone that knows how to do AWS. We need just all of these discipline. Like you talk about building a website. Why does ours work? Because we know what we're doing. And why do we need all those other people along the way on building software? Is because you need people that know what they're doing. You need people that know how to use AWS and that know how to program React and know how to get database, and you want experts in those fields. So you can't, and once we started programming, we're like, this is significantly more deep than we thought. And we were funding those efforts through PMW. PMW is a nicely profitable company. And we funded the first probably year and a half ourselves. And that's when we decided, hey, if we're going to do this, we need some help. And so that's when we started hiring. And that was probably about 3 years prior to our launch. But so now we have like almost 20 developers. At the time we were 5 or 6. But having 5 or 6 people that are highly technical, they're not cheap. Those are expensive people because they're skilled, and you're losing money at that point. So we did raise some money early on through some friends and family, some other investors, and that got us through at least to the point where we were able to launch. And then we need more skills, more specialized people, and so you have to hire more and raise more. So.
Exactly. So you said PMW was funding it for the first while, for the first year, year and a half.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you went to family and friends, or is that when you decided I need to get my first round?
No, we went to we went a little bit different of approach. Jonathan and I have always been bootstrappers, which that's what most people do.
Yep.
Because typically there's not a lot of people out there that want to hand over a bunch of money to people, especially if you haven't done it before. So you have to, you have to prove yourself. You have to make some profits. As soon as there's somebody that's willing to give you money for what you do, then you at least have potential. And then the better and better you get at it, the more people are willing to give you more money. And but when you're going up against huge incumbents like Appfolio and Propertyware and Buildium, who have billions of dollars, it's pretty hard to bootstrap that. So we raised some, we went what's called a private placement memorandum, and we just raised it from, people that we knew, people that were some of our customers that were helping us beta. And they've all done extremely well making that investment. But at the time they made that, like the first investors, something like 98% of software companies fail before they ever even get a single customer. So that's a really risky bet. And then once we started gaining some momentum and it looked like, wow, we're actually going to make this happen, then more people were obviously willing to invest, but then it's at a higher valuation. So their investment doesn't multiply as quite as much. Still a lot. And then, we were actually doing really, really well, adding tons of units every month, but this is just a really, really expensive business, and there's a lot of technical talent that you have to have, and that's why, even though we were doing awesome financially and growing at an 3-4x year over year, we still felt that we needed to at least entertain the option of bringing in a more solid institutional investor, and that's what we ended up doing with Mainsail. And that's a whole different process.
Yeah. So when did that happen?
So we actually we took the investment on August of this year, August 21st of 2024. But the process of doing it was, it took us almost 8 months to really to arrive at that point. And it's an enormous amount of work to do something like that. And you never really have any assurance that there's going to be any kind of decent outcome after you spend all that time and effort. So what we kind of noticed was, like, even though we were very successful at raising money, when you do that money does have a shelf life. Like, it's gonna run out, and it goes faster than you think. And the bigger and bigger you get, the more payroll, the more expenses, the scarier and scarier it gets as that money starts to dwindle down. And you're like, okay, what do we have? 3-6 months left. And so as the CEO, I'm spending a lot of my time raising money, making sure that we have the resources that we need, instead of, really working on and building the business and selling, which is where my time is better served. So it's just a constant battle to raise money, and that's why we decided to look at doing the other route, because now we have an investor that basically, as long as we're on track, they're willing to invest and keep going.
So when you brought on the investor, how did you decide? Because bringing on investors do take a long time, but when you bring them on, how did you decide what kind of equity he would receive? Did he receive? How did you decide that?
Well, early on, we would do a memorandum, and if we're offering this many shares at this price, and it's either a yes, no. There's no negotiation on that, because we can't offer one investor one price and another investor another price, unless there's like some extenuating, maybe if someone's giving us a bunch of business or whatever. But typically, you have to treat all those investors the exact same way. And then when you do a process, like a financial process of raising money, when you kind of just go out to the equity markets, the private equity, and they get to bid on what they think you're worth, and they can make an offer, and that's obviously a negotiation as well. And you want to try to get multiple parties involved in that process, because it does help drive up the value. And just try to make the best. The most important thing is picking the right partner, because it doesn't matter how much money someone brings to the table if they either don't know what they're doing, or they're going to crush your culture, or whatever it might be. So the most important thing in raising money is you got to find the best partner, and then hopefully that partner is competitive in their valuation to where you want to choose them. And we really chose an awesome partner in Mainsail. They've been so good, so helpful for us in so many ways. And part of it is they've done multiple investments in the industry, and they know, there's other private equity firms that we're talking to that just don't understand. As a property manager, how hard it is to explain to people what we do. Hey, I do property management. Oh, so apartments?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, kind of. Yeah. Oh, commercial or trailer parks or vacation rentals or
so many different
whatever.
things.
Property management is an all-encompassing field. But what I was raised around is kind of that NARPM type property manager that's got 200, 300, 400 units, mostly single-family homes, and then a small mix of duplexes, fourplexes, small apartment buildings, maybe a storage facility here, a commercial building there, whatever they're doing to try to pay the bills. And that's kind of who we go after with our sales and marketing efforts is the people that we know, and which makes it a lot better because we know what we're trying to address.
Which is so important. You got to know who you're going after. But when you brought on the investor, did he come on as he was going to be working in the business as well, or is he more of an advisor in just money? Because those are two different types of investors.
Yeah, it's honestly a pretty good combination of both.
Okay.
So the company that we chose, Mainsail, has a go-to-market and a management team
nice.
that we can pretty much tap into whenever we want. So they don't directly work in the business, but it's kind of like having a consulting firm on speed dial. If we want help on building a good commission plan, they have a sales team that's done it before. If we need some help with some marketing efforts or hiring some executives, they have people to help us with all that. And it's a huge burden off of our plate because that stuff takes a ton of time, and we have to do it all ourselves. So when you're trying to hire people, that's hard, and when you're trying to figure out a commission structure, that's hard. When you're trying to figure out marketing that works, that's hard. Finance, it's a lot of stuff, and they've built 80 companies before, and
so they understand that.
Every company's different, but there's discipline around building a business that they've done so many more times than we have. And sometimes they're wrong. Sometimes they're like, hey, doesn't really apply to our industry.
Yeah.
So we're going to skip that advice. But most of the advice is pretty good. And so we, it's been a great relationship, and it's a honeymoon phase. It's early on, so you never know. But you hear a lot of horror stories about private equity, and we just haven't seen that with this group. And I'm sure there's plenty of them out there that are like that. But I think we chose an awesome partner.
That's awesome. How often do you have to get reporting to them?
We have a board meeting cadence.
Okay.
That's every quarter. But we have weekly update calls, and like right now we're trying to put together a budget, which is really hard to do when you have limited history and extreme growth. So, we can't realistically expect that we're going to triple again next year like we did last year. So we have to try to figure out, hey, I think we're still going to grow. So it's just a lot of, once we get that budgeting process done, and there's a lot more interaction early on. We've been told that once you get 2-3 years into it, and you kind of have your executive team hired, and things get a little bit easier after that point. But for right now it's pretty intense. We have a lot of interaction with them, and a lot of we're asked. It's not just them pushing it to us. It's us saying, hey, we want to do a little bit better here. Can you help us figure out a good strategy? And they've actually been they actually really changed the game for us sales wise. We changed our sales process just a little bit, and it's really increased our conversion rate on demos, and it's just the good business discipline that they've built over the years that they're sharing with us, and it's super helpful.
Well, it's amazing because you went to top talent that understands, has done it 80 times. So now they're coming in when you've done it multiple times, but you've gotten the expert that's done it 80. So they're going to be able to take you exactly where y'all want to go. I always talk about that. Find the person that's done it and have them take you there. Because we set up a board. They don't have equity in our company. We just pay them, and we put a board together so we find people that have done what we want to do, and they can take us where we want to go. Because if we've never done it, sometimes it's harder and we stumble a little bit more instead of saying, hey, look, I'm seeing what you're trying to do, but, if you did this, it'd probably be a lot easier, or this would take you where you want to go.
It's called reinventing the wheel. People don't, people are not, the one they built already works pretty well. So, it helps to have people that have been there and done it.
Don't reinvent the wheel.
Yeah, we have the industry knowledge and pedigree, and we're certainly not afraid to work. So when you couple that with the amount of capital that you need to make the investments where appropriate, with a team of people that understand the industry and the customer and what they want, it's a pretty powerful partnership. And so far they've been very helpful for us.
So what's the next steps for Rentvine? Then you have your partner. What's the strategic next steps?
Well, there's a lot. We're building out a lot of our team right now, and that's one thing that kind of sucks about being bootstrapped is you feel like you know what you want to do and you know what's going to work, but you really got to be careful about every investment you make in something is critical. It could actually kill you if you make a really bad investment in time, money, resources, whatever, and it fails or takes longer or is way more expensive. When you have those limited resources, that can be really hard. So what we're trying to do over the next couple of years, put our team in place, and then obviously critical for us is the software roadmap. That's the most important thing for us, is identifying the customer need areas that we can address that make the most impact for our customers. And as we do that, and our software becomes more and more viable for everybody. I mean, we've already got we have a ton of units, and especially this time of year, we have a ton of people switching, but there's still plenty of people that are up on that bench, all the way from ready to switch. Once we get one more thing to, I'm never switching ever again. I'm going to retire in 5 years, and I can't even stomach the thought of switching. So,
because it's a pain. It's a pain. Well, we're in a sticky business. Once you switch, people do not want to switch because of the pain to try to figure out how to get everything over correctly.
Yeah, it's the worst thing we can ask you to do. I know that. But the good news is once you do it, as long as we don't abuse you, like many of our competitors are doing, then you don't leave us. So that's great. So
I don't know if you know my story about coming over to Rentvine. I
know you have two companies and only one of them's on Rentvine, so we need to get that other one over.
The other one is being in planning stages. So I spent a year interviewing Rentvine. Your team was, you've said customer service and customer throughout this whole thing, and you really hone in on that because your whole team, I had probably 12 meetings with them. I put them through the ringer. Yeah. And
yes, some customers are more difficult than others, Tiffany. That is true.
That was me, because I was like, what am I not seeing? What downfalls am I not seeing? Because I know when I do this, there's going to be things that I don't understand about the switch. Mm-hmm. Every software is different. But it was interesting to see how every step of the way your team was like, okay, we can go through that with you. And then we're actually making a plan for Rosenbaum to be able to get on it. And my number 2 is meeting with some people in your team to try to get a plan of how long it'll take, how can we build out everything and train our team so we don't lose clients in the process. I think that's the big scare, right?
Yeah, it is scary.
Losing clients.
You have to notify all your owners and tenants that you're switching software, and that sucks, and you got to move everything over. But I think we do a pretty good job of it, and it's never easy, but it's worth it if what we can give you is significantly better than what you have. And I feel like we're there, and we're either we're gaining functionality all the time. We're releasing software significantly faster than our competitors are at this point, and I don't know how, because we have way smaller teams than they do. But
your teams work like literally. I feel like they work around the clock. I know that
we don't allow anyone to go home until Christmas.
I know you don't, but like all email support, and it's like back like that, and I'm like, that was fast. And but I've met a lot of your team members, and they love working. The culture y'all have is amazing. So I agree. When you find the right company to switch to them, it's well worth it.
Yeah, and that's really, it's really one of the things. One of our competitive advantages is you talk about culture, and every company talks about how great their culture is. And for some people, it's just bullshit. It's not. Ours really is, and it's overpowering in a really good way. It overwhelms new people, and either they can get on board or they don't last very long. It's also huge during our interview and hiring process. I specifically tell them what our mission and vision and core values, and any problem with any of those, because if so, you're not going to last. If you're not going to be relentless, then we might not need you here. So it really means something. And so there's the culture, and then the customer support. It's just such an easy thing to compete on. For whatever reason, I don't know why it's so hard for so many companies to deliver even an acceptable level of support. I never get it, but I'll take it. If our competitors want to continue to do a poor job of that, we'll just keep taking their customers from them. So that's fine.
No, that's true. I have an insurance company that says if we don't take care of our customers, someone else will. And it's true. Someone else will, and someone else will.
Every industry.
Every industry.
Every industry that'll happen. So.
No, Dave, I appreciate you. I have a few other questions. I want to be respectful of your time, but what is the best advice you've ever received throughout your journey of being an entrepreneur?
Well, there's been a couple things. Number one, I get advice that however hard you think it is, it's going to be harder. And a startup is so hard because everything has to be created. So be ready to be persistent and fail and wonder how you're going to make it to the next level, to have no idea where your next paycheck's coming from. That's what entrepreneurship takes. And 90% of the world does not have the stomach for it, and that's okay, because those people, there's people that like to have a consistent income, a budget, know where that's coming from. If that's you, don't start a company, especially one that is going to require significant investment and uncertainty and things like that. Being an entrepreneur is hard, and that's the reason when people are very successful at it, they make a lot of money, because it takes a ton of sacrifice. And it takes a ton of, you have to be able to stomach uncertainty. When am I going to get paid? When am I, whatever. Then there's also, the advice I give is figure out finance, it doesn't matter if you're opening a property management company or a coffee shop. You or somebody on your team has to be really good at finance and figuring out the accounting, because it's the absolute foundation of any solid business. Because you cannot make good decisions unless you have good financial data. You have to know how much is coming in and how much is going out and where you can invest. And that's the single biggest, even if you hate finance and hate accounting, which I do, you have to be able to at least have a good enough understanding of it as an entrepreneur to be able to make decisions with that data. So be prepared to suffer and make sure you know what your finances mean to your business and your decision making. That's the best advice I can give. That's what's helped me be successful.
Oh, I love it. I love how you said, if you want a given, like this is your paycheck or this is your budget, then don't be an entrepreneur. I can remember many nights of crying, going, oh, crud, how am I going to, I'll figure it out. Or, oh, no, what's next? I'll figure it out. But you have to be willing to go through the suck. Like, there's days that are, oh, this is hard. This sucks, but we'll get through it. What is the worst advice you've ever received, David?
Let's see. Buy a bunch of expensive toys, watches, cars, houses, which I didn't take the advice, but so back to the entrepreneurship question. I say you have to be willing to suffer, but you're able to endure suffering more if your personal expenses in life are under control. Yes. And if you have a ton of debt and monthly payments and toys that you don't need, your ability to suffer goes down dramatically because you have to pay for that stuff. So before you go out and take on whatever entrepreneurial challenge you're going to do, you gotta simplify everything. Move back in with your mom, sell the Porsche, sell the Rolex. If you're going to get through it, you either got to have a rich relatives or you got to have zero to no expenses in your life, because it's hard to battle. It's hard to battle and suffer when you got lots of bills to pay. So you got to clear that stuff up if you really want to be successful. If you really want to be able to handle the suffering.
No, 100%. Stay out of debt. There's good debt and there's bad debt, but Don't go in and buying all the expensive things. If you want to be an entrepreneur, you better be ready for that money to go towards that business, because that's what happens.
Got to be able to put on. Yeah, it's always more expensive than you think. It always takes longer than you think. And the worst part about it is that some people get to that point where they almost made it, and then they quit for whatever reason. They couldn't take it anymore. They ran out of money, whatever. They got sick, and there's just persistence and perseverance is just, you can't replace it. And it's, like I said, people complain about entrepreneurs making lots of money. Frankly, they deserve it, because they suffer hard and they go through pain and they go through things that people with consistent paying jobs don't have to. And I have nothing against those people. I love those people. They're awesome. They make the world go round.
I do.
But if you need a consistent income, and entrepreneurship's a tough one.
It is. I remember when we were on food storage and we had no money and we were trying to bootstrap this thing. It was like we stayed on food storage to make sure the business could get off the ground when any money was coming in. And to this day, I don't think you could pay me $1 million to go back on food storage, because it's the most disgusting thing. But you have to be willing to suffer. And if you look at Bezos and Elon Musk, they have learned the art of suffering, and they can go as long. If you can prolong your success, meaning your reward is the bigger your success will be. Like, prolong that 100%. Reward. Go, keep pushing, because there's gonna be days that you want to quit, but don't quit. Keep going. If you were talking to one of our viewers right now, and they're going through this roller coaster of entrepreneurship, and they're in the dumps of it, and they're going through the suck, what would you tell them to help them get through that?
Hang in there. Now that can be great. Remember, you asked good advice, bad advice.
Yeah.
Hanging in there on a dumb idea is not a good idea. But you sometimes you don't really know whether you have a good idea until you've either made it or you're broke. Mm-hmm. And but if you think you're onto something, just hang in there but get better. Don't just wake up every day and fight the fires. You have to learn. You have to study. And it doesn't matter. It doesn't always have to be business books or the 7 great habits of successful people or Good to Great, even though those are awesome books. But I love books like I like history books, George Washington, Abe Lincoln, people that really suffered. That you take George Washington's one of my favorite people, because he was already rich. He didn't need that struggle, but he believed in it and he did it. And it was way harder than anything we've ever done. And if you kind of get a grasp of what other people have gone through, then it gives you a little more ability to suffer more yourself, because you're at least I have food. It's not 28 below zero, and I don't have shoes on, and I have to fight the British, who are the most powerful. I like educating myself, and I feel like learn about great people, because great people accomplish great things, and very, very, very rarely, if ever, have any of them just kind of shown up and been successful. It's pretty rare. So, learning the struggles of other people other famous, successful people, I think, is something that people need to continue to educate themselves on.
I love that you said that, because I think so many people go to school and say, hey, I went to high school, I went to college, I'm done. If you want to be a successful entrepreneur, just like you said, you've got to continue to learn. I mean, it's not, hey, go into the office and do emails every day. It's like, what do I do to put my company up next level? How do I continue to learn? How do I understand this problem? SaaS companies, you're always having to learn. Technology is moving so quickly. Like, our technology is so rapidly changing that we always have to be on top of it, learning what can we do better, because otherwise we'll be put out of business with how much technology is moving.
People have significant choice in who they give their dollars to. So true. And you need to be able to look yourself in the mirror and be like, I deserve the money because I'm going to do the best job for them. Oh. And if you can't do that, you need to keep going until you can, because that's ultimately, I think you were at that Lead Simple event last week, right?
I was.
We're talking about that Net Promoter Score.
Yes.
It's like, if you need to know if you're good at what you do, because if you're not, you don't really have a lot of business out asking people to give you their money and help them. So
I love that you said that.
You got to be good at what you do, and then you deserve it. If you're the best at it, you deserve the money because you are truly helping them. And if you can't look yourself, if there's 50 other people in your market that are better than you, then why would you expect to get the money? Why would you expect someone to hire the 38th best property manager in Arizona when they can go hire the best for pretty much this, maybe a little bit more, but pretty much the same price? So you got to be able to look yourself in the mirror and be honest with yourself about whether or not you really deserve to be asking people for their money. And if you do, great. Go be confident and take it and be as successful as you want. But if you don't, then figure out a way to get there.
Oh, I love it. I love it. David, it's been a pleasure to talk to you today. If for our viewers that are in property management, where can they find you and your company to be able to look you up?
Yeah, rentvine.com, propertymanagerwebsites.com. You can shoot me an email at dave@rentvine.com. We're pretty easy to find.
Your response rate is like insane.
Yeah, if you reach out to us, we're gonna bug you back. I mean, I'm slow, but the rest of the company will be very fast at responding to you. So just reach out. We'll get you a demo, and we'll show you how we can make your life significantly easier.
Awesome. Well, we appreciate it, Dave. Thanks so much for coming on.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
All right.
Thanks for tuning in today to The Road Less Traveled. If you're organizing an event, workshop, or simply planning something exciting and would like to have Tiffany Rosenbaum join you or want to have her on your podcast, visit tiffanyrosenbaum.com and click on Book Tiffany to get started.